Back with Wesch Part 8. Wesch Chapter 5 here, still working through this. Let's see. Get our what the world was like. The world was basically China, and then the Mediterranean and everything in between, Africa, India, etc. Um, and that was Samarkand. In contrast, in 1492, the Catholic rulers of Spain were finally able to establish control over their territory and drive the last of the Muslim leaders from Granada. This is similar to the Philippines or Colombia, finally establishing government control over all of its territory. They keep trying to do this, and one of these years, they're going to do it. It's nothing to be particularly proud of, objectively speaking. The only globally important European powers at this time were Venice and Genoa, Italian trading cities that were very wealthy, but also in a very poor part of the world. And we just looked at that chart in the last video. So I remember, reading history and learning that Venice and Genoa were fabulously rich places. But actually they weren't. They were only as rich as China or Egypt. It just so happened, or Iraq, it just so happened that they were right next to France and Spain, which were terribly, miserably poor countries compared to Egypt and Iraq and China. It's just that they were next to such poor countries in the same way that Singapore and Hong Kong seem like fabulously wealthy places when you compare them to Burma or Vietnam. It's just that, but if you compare Hong Kong or Singapore to, France or Germany or whatever today, they're not that much richer. They're pretty much about the same. Okay, so in terms of military power, the Portuguese Navy was making some headway along the coast of Africa. Let's look at where we are, sorry, because it's important. Away from the Registan, back out. Let's get back to the regular map. It goes faster. And get rid of the little blue dots. And we're over here in Spain, right? So Granada is part of is a Muslim state in 1491. In 1492, they finally conquer it. The rest of Spain is, of course, Castile and Aragon, uniting under one flag in 1492. So, in terms of military power, the Portuguese Navy was making some headway along the coast of Africa. But on land, it had actually made it all the way around, but on land, its army would be soundly defeated by a Moroccan army in 1587. 100 years later, the Portuguese army was wiped out in northern Morocco. Half the Moroccan army, the entire Portuguese army, was wiped out by half the other half of the Moroccan army. So the first two major events of 1492, the unification of Spain and the Inquisition. Oh my goodness, I forgot about the Inquisition. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. But there's a joke in there. So the unification of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella marry, bringing the two main kingdoms together. And then the second one was the Inquisition, when they kicked out everybody who was a Muslim or a Jew from Spain. So prior to that, for about, 600 or 700 years, Spain had Muslim rulers moving all the way up to the north and then back down again since the 1100s. So there had been this sort of rough and ready mixture of religions and ethnicities in Spain, and it was a very sort of vibrant place. And when Muslims were ruling, Christians were tolerated, and when Christians were ruling, Muslims were tolerated, and everyone tolerated the Jewish people because they had been there before anyone. But in 1492, they said no. If you are Muslim, or they had already started the Inquisition. Inquisition had already been around. There had been people who had converted to Christianity from Islam. As the line moved to the north, Christians had converted to Islam, and then as the line had moved south, Muslims had converted to Christianity. But as it happens, sometimes these conversions are not made on the basis of genuine changes of heart, but more as sort of a way to get different taxes or to make yourself look better to your business partners or something like that. Um, and so some people were converted to Christianity, but still practicing, still praying on Fridays or still, having their Seder meal if they were Jewish on Friday nights. And so, if you are technically a Christian and you're doing these things, then the crown, the Spanish crown, felt like they were justified in, you know, killing you. But people who had never converted to Christianity were, fine. That's your religion. You never said you were a Christian. You're under no obligation to follow Christian law. But in 1492, they said no. You have to convert, or you will be killed, or you can leave. So it was a brutal, unprecedented thing in Spain. Hadn't happened before. There had been some regional expulsions, but this was absolutely peninsula wide, and just was terribly, terribly shocking to the rest of the world. We have evidence of that by Yazid II. This is on Wikipedia. You can go there and look and see. Sorry, I'm trying to move this over so you can read it. Bayezid II is the Ottoman emperor at the time in Istanbul. He was just an ordinary guy, but in 1492, the new state of Spain expelled its Jewish and Muslim populations as part of the Spanish Inquisition. Bayezid II sent out the Ottoman navy under the command of his admiral in 1492 to evacuate them safely, Jews and Muslims, to Ottoman lands. He sent out proclamations throughout the empire that they were to be welcomed. He granted them permission to settle in the Ottoman Empire, become Ottoman citizens. He ridiculed the conduct of Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile in expelling a class of people so useful to their subjects. You venture to call Ferdinand a wise ruler, he said to his courtiers, he who has impoverished his own country and enriched mine. And indeed, we're familiar with this because we Americans, we're living in a country that is greatly enriched from the 1930s when Hitler was expelling Jews from Germany. And, one of them was a guy called Albert Einstein, Sure, send him over here. We'll be glad to take him. Of course, we're happy to have these people. And it was the same thing in Spain. The Muslims and Jews were, very, very skilled workers. They were craftsmen. They were business people. They were farmers with a lot of knowledge. And when they got kicked out, everyone looked at that and said, "This is insane. You're destroying your own country." In the same way that Germany was greatly impoverished by murdering its own citizens who happened to follow the wrong religion. So it's already a poor country. They're wiping out their citizens. What's going to happen here? Everyone looking on. Bayezid II and others are looking on and like, man, you guys are totally screwed. This is the end of it for Spain. This is like Cambodia during Cambodia. Remember, Cambodia is next to Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, the war spread to Cambodia, Laos, and Cambodia. And at some point in the 70s, Cambodia got taken over by the Khmer Rouge, the communist rulers who were Maoists. And while a lot of communists said, "Oh, the true sort of citizen is the worker," the Khmer Rouge said, "No, the true citizen is the farmer, is the farm worker." And so basically, in Cambodia after 1975, if you were educated, if you were skilled, air traffic controller, heart surgeon, nurse, teacher, lawyer, doctor, you know how to run the municipal water works, too bad. You're going to go out into the fields and work and to become a true citizen, and then you'll get killed at some point too. So they basically saw everyone with a college degree and shot them. And everyone's looking on and saying, man. Here you can read about it. Khmer Rouge. You guys are setting yourselves back. In 100 years, Cambodia will barely be able to make it back. You have no idea where you're headed. This is going to be a world of pain. And so they shook their heads and said, you know, Spain, you're a poor, miserable country to begin with. And in 100 years, you're going to be even poorer and miserable after doing that. However, that was not the case. By 1592, Spain ruled the world. Wow, how did that happen? Well, that is the third major event, the discovery of the New World, and we are coming to that. Okay.